What's going on, everybody? I thought it would be fun to create a bit of a beginner series to help those of you who haven't gone to the track yet with your car or autocross or anything like that, and tell you the steps to actually get there and enjoy this sport yourself. So this will be the first in that series, so if you have any other comments or questions or a video you want to see so you can get yourself to the track, just leave me a comment below and we'll get to it. So this video is going to be about how to get your car ready for a track day. A lot of this applies to autocross, but you don't have to go to quite the same prep level to get your car ready for that. I'll have a separate video on what to do for autocross prep. This is just focused for a high performance driving event at a big track. So that's just something to keep in mind. So for this one, I think there's 5 kind of basic categories that are important to go over when you're getting ready for your first track day. The first thing is the car. You need to get a safety inspection done. If you haven't been working on cars much your entire life, I just take it to a mechanic. If you go to a speed shop, a lot of times they're going to be equipped and also kind of know what to look for when they do a safety inspection for your car. And if you run with certain organizations like the BMW Car Club or NASA, they require you to go to a third party anyway. So it's a good idea to have them look it over if you don't know what to look for. But as you get more experienced, it's definitely something you'll be able to do. I do it all the time. My basic method involves putting a wrench on anything I can get to and checking the wheels for cracks, making sure my rotors have enough thickness and they're not cracked, looking at my brake lines. Actually, brake line inspection is really important. You want to make sure if you have aftermarket stainless lines, you want to make sure those aren't getting tore up or anything weird like that. There's a lot of little details, but that's kind of the basics of that. And on top of that, what I would recommend when you do your safety inspection, it's a good time to think about what tools you might need to bring. So if you know that, okay, the strut uses a 22 millimeter socket to tighten that to the top hat, I throw that in your tool bag so that way you're not stressed out looking for that tool if you need it when you get to the track. Hopefully you won't need any of your tools, but it does happen. So that's kind of my thing. I try to use the safety inspection time as another kind of checklist for myself when I'm packing and getting ready. Now, whether you take your car in for an actual safety inspection or you do it yourself, it's also a good time to consider servicing the car. That means oil, transmission fluid, differential fluid. If it's the beginning of the season, do it. If it's your first time going to the track, I would probably do it too, because more than likely that hasn't been done to your car, especially if it's something you just got. As far as oil, I think it's a really good idea to bring a spare quart at least, because when you're using your car in that environment, you're at higher RPMs longer, and it's pretty likely you're going to burn a little bit of oil. Even the healthiest motor will burn a drop of oil. You don't usually need spare transmission or diff fluid. If you have a spare one, throw it in your bag. You might be able to help somebody else out, but I wouldn't worry about it. As far as tools, I've done a video about what tools I bring, so if you want to see that, check it at that link up there. So that's all I want to say about safety inspection. Just make sure your car is in good working order and you don't have any questionable modifications or parts on it. Next on my list, brakes. I think it's kind of an overlooked area, but if you're a beginner, it's really easy to figure that out. Really, all you need to do, brake fluid. If you haven't swapped your brake fluid out since you bought your car, do it. You should do it anyways, even if it's a street car, but the stock fluid is not going to hold up to the abuse on the track. There's a lot of great fluids out there that are street friendly too, like Willwood 570, Project Mu has one, PFC has one, I think. I mean, just any major company that is going to sell a performance-oriented brake fluid that has a higher temperature ceiling, throw it in there, flush your brakes, and bring some with you to the track. Again, you never know what's going to happen. You might boil a fluid your first session because you're a hero. I don't know, but you should always have extra fluid with you. It can't hurt, and it doesn't take up that much space. So pads, if it's your first time, you really don't need brake pads. The stock pads, more than likely, they're going to be totally adequate for you. you're not going to be going that fast. You won't be using them that hard. If it turns into a regular habit for you, I would recommend a set of track pads you swap in before you go to the track. Trying to drive around on the street with track pads, it's not only not safe, but it'll just ruin your wheels. They leave iron deposits depending on the brand. I'm looking at you, Hawk. It's just not worth it. It's not worth the noise. Just make sure whatever you swap to on the street is compatible, is a compatible compound with whatever your track pad is. So I try to stay within the same family. I run Porterfield race pads like they're R4 or R41 when I'm on track. And then when I'm on the street, I run the R4S. Makes it nice and easy. I don't have to bed the rotors again. It works out really well. But again, if you're a beginner, don't worry about it. When you go to the track or you're buying really cool mods, safety equipment's probably pretty low on your list. If it's your first track day, at minimum, you need a helmet. They're going to want you to wear a long sleeve t-shirt and like a pair of jeans, something that's non-synthetic that won't melt when you catch on fire. Hopefully not. But that's a minimum. And as far as helmets, you can usually rent them from the organization that you're going to, but they're pretty grody. And if you think you want to do this more, invest in a quality helmet. Bell, Black Armor, there's a lot of good brands out there. Just don't cheap out. If you have a good helmet from the beginning, it'll last you 3 to 5 years if you take care of it. So it's a really good investment to make, and it just makes your track days more comfortable. You're in your helmet for 30 minutes at a time usually. Whatever you buy, just make sure you can try it on before you get out there and get the right fit. It's really important. I have a weird shaped head, so I struggle to find helmets that don't give me a headache, so I just a little bit more kind of tuned into that. But take your time finding a good helmet. As you continue down the path of driving, you will eventually want to probably invest in a set of gloves, driving shoes, a driving suit, Nomex socks, and then Nomex long johns or that sort of thing. But you don't need that right away. However, don't skip out and throw the baddest turbo you can on your car and never get safety equipment. It's really important, especially with a modified car. There's just even more of a chance that something could happen. Hopefully it won't, but it's just better to be prepared and not need it and be in that situation. So that's all I'm going to say on that topic. If you want to know more, just let me know. The last thing I'll say regarding safety equipment is if you have harnesses in your car, please, 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 please wear a head and neck restraint. It's not worth literally risking death to wear harnesses and not have a head and neck restraint. You have to have that along with a proper FIA fixed back seat and a roll bar to properly attach those harnesses. You don't want to attach your harnesses where they go through your stock seat and then connect down at your rear seat. You will literally get crushed if your car gets in a rollover. Again, that's not likely going to happen for your first day, but if those are in your car, put the stock belts back in and run all of the OEM safety equipment. When it comes to harnesses, you have to run everything as a system in order for it to work. That's just how it is. So please keep that in mind. I hate to see the news when terrible things happen on tracks that honestly could have just been prevented by either A, proper tech inspection, or B, just a little bit of common sense. So save everybody the hassle and the loss of track time too by avoiding doing something like that to your car. Tires are also an important piece to the puzzle when you go to the track, but for your first time, what tires you bring largely doesn't matter as long as A, they have tread, B, they're not cracking or too old, and C, they're just properly sized for whatever wheel you're running. So the big thing is no cracks, like I said, fresh tires. You want about at least 430 seconds tread depth. Really, I would want more on there if I was driving to and from the track. So if you're going to the track and driving your car there, make sure you have enough to get through the day and drive yourself home. You don't want to drive home on cords. It's not fun. You don't need sticky tires for your first time. In fact, I would say don't bring sticky tires for your first time because it's going to up the speeds to a point where you can never learn car control because the car will just have so much mechanical grip. You'll never actually get to experience any of the dynamics of the car in an appreciable way. In fact, I would say it's more dangerous for a novice to bring super sticky tires to the track their first time. It does mask your mistakes, but it'll also just put you in a situation where you're going to be exiting the track at a high rate of speed when the car gets away from you, because it will. You're just not going to be equipped for it. The last thing I want to cover is what organization you run with does matter. There's a lot of organizations out there. Some are more focused on just getting you track time. Some are focused on a structured environment that it builds you up as a driver. If it's your first time, I really recommend the latter. Find an organization like NASA, BMW CCA, even PCA, and that's BMW Car Club of America and Porsche Club of America. Those are just great organizations that have a structured driver's program where you can come in as a novice and have a good time and be successful. If you try and jump into it, I'm certain you can figure it out, but I think it's a slower process and it's also less safe. It's a lot better if you get out there with an instructor and they actually keep an eye on you when you're first out there. It's just going to make your whole experience better. And I do the same thing with motorcycles. I mean, I've been riding motorcycles my whole life, and I still made sure I went to a novice school my first time on a big racetrack. And that's after attending other motorcycle schools on supermotos. So the biggest thing is don't let your ego get in the way of you. It's just a bad idea, and it'll save you a lot of trouble in the long run. My last thing that I'll leave you with is stock is best. If you really want to just focus on getting seat time, don't modify your car that much. Only do the essentials. With modern cars, you don't need to do much to have a lot of fun, and just get out there and turn laps. The more you modify it and the more you think how much you need to track prep your car, the less you're just going to get out there and your buddies are going to get faster than you. I've seen it so many times. Get out there and drive. You don't need to have this crazy built-up car to get out there and turn laps, because I'll tell you what, your first time out, you're going to suck just like the rest of us did our first time, and that's okay. You have to start somewhere. Nobody's going to be a pro driver their first time out. So get out there and turn laps. With that said, if it is a modern car, make sure your oil temperatures don't get too hot. A lot of these modern cars run a really thin oil and they'll heat up really quick. So if it's an extended session, that oil could break down and potentially cause an engine failure. So that's probably the only other track modification I'd throw out there to you that you want to make sure you get if you need it. Like a BRZ, for example, or an 86, you have to run an oil cooler on track. There's no way to get around it. You could probably get through your first day without it, but after that, make sure you get one on the car. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, again, leave a comment below. And if you want to see more of these beginner type videos, let me know. Till the next time, I'm Sean with a driver's perspective.